Hey you folks, Cool18 here, and welcome to Let's Play Sid Meier's Civilization V, A Brave New World. I've been really excited for this expansion pack, so I couldn't wait to start the Let's Play, so I'm diving in right away. Of course, since the game has just come out, or rather the expansion has just come out, there's a good chance we're going to run into some bugs, some balance issues, I don't know. That'll probably get fixed in the patch really soon, so it's possible that over the course of the Let's Play, some of the experience is going to be changing a little bit as the patches come out, but hopefully this won't break any of our saves this time. So anyway, we're going to get started right away on a single-player campaign, and we're going to set up a game. Now, I've been very intrigued by the Venetian civilization this time around with their really bizarre mechanic that they're basically almost playing like a one-city challenge. They can't build settlers, and they can't annex cities. Now, of course, they can still conquer cities and turn them into puppets. That is totally fine, and that even works with city-states as well, so that's kind of interesting. And they the other big twist is that they can use money to purchase buildings and units, apparently, in puppeted cities, which normally you can't do. Because that was one of the big worries, is because you'll only have direct control over one city, so my problem was always like, well, how are you going to sort of direct any of your production anywhere? You can't. You've just got to hope that the AI builds the right thing. That's a little sketchy. What if you want to go for a cultural victory and the AI doesn't end up building enough cultural buildings, for example? So you do have the option to do it as long as you have lots of money. Now, luckily, we do have double the normal number of trade routes, so that should help us make some pretty serious bank as well. And of course, we've got the Merchant of Venice mechanic. What news on the Rialto? So we'll see how that works out. I have not played this expansion at all yet. This is going in completely blind. I certainly have no experience with the Venice mechanic, so it's going to be kind of crazy, but we'll see what we can do. So we've got that. The map script. Let's go into the advanced setup actually and take a look at what extra map scripts might be available. We're just going to scroll down here so people can sort of glance at the list. I actually quite like, in Civ 5, I quite like playing on Pangaea, because I find that otherwise, sometimes you can get really weird balance issues. I find that Pangaea is the most sort of balanced and properly playing in Civ 5, but it's not always terribly exciting. Continents Plus, on the other hand, which usually doesn't show up in the normal list, that's why you have to go into the advanced setup. It's very similar to Continents, but yeah, the scripting is a little bit... I think I like the scripting, the way that the slight tweaks between Continents and Continents Plus. I really like the little changes they've done there. Of course, Earth can always be fun because it will look, you know, relatively similar to home. That being said, I think we might go for Fractal this time. Thin, snaky continents, a lot of coastal lines. I think it might end up feeling quite Venetian to be very coastal. We'll build up a nice navy, and I think this will be good without being quite as crazy as going Archipelago. So we're going to give this a try. I don't have a lot of experience with Fractal, so for all I know, it's going to create a terrible map. But hey, as long as we're in it together. We are going to go standard size. We're going to go standard pace. Now, the difficulty, I have been playing as Emperor, but I'm going to drop it back down to King, just because it's a new expansion, and I'm sure a lot of the mechanics are kind of going to trip me up. I'm going to make more mistakes than usual, so we're going to try to bring down the difficulty just one little notch. Other than that, we're going to go pretty standard setup. All the normal victory types turned on. We're going to have quick combat and quick movement because I find it just makes the... I mean, that's the way I like to play it personally because I'm a little impatient. And a lot of people in the videos complain when the animations aren't enabled. They're like, we want to see the pretty graphics or something. But frankly, I think it helps the pace of the videos quite a bit. So with that, we are going to... yeah, we're going to leave it like that. Everything else random. Venice, I suppose I could just turn on all the new civs. That might be interesting. Maybe I'll grab a couple here and there. Well, we'll turn on Morocco. Syria's new, I think. Watch this. I'm going to be like, Napoleon. He's totally brand new. Let's totally go with him. I'll go Casimir of Poland. And, you know, maybe we'll leave the rest kind of random. One more, maybe. You know what? We're going to throw Hale? I don't know. We're going to throw Ethiopia in it, and we'll leave the rest random just so that we can actually get started. And we will hit start, and of course we've got to wait a few minutes for everything to be regenerated. So, we do get to read the history of Enrico Dandalo. So actually, you can go ahead and pause and read that if you'd like. Venice is a really interesting situation. So Venice is not a kingdom. It's not a typical nation. It was known as the most... That was a really fast load time. What the hell? All right, well, let's go here. Venice was known as the most serene republic, and it was ruled by a doge, who was elected, basically. I mean, he ruled for life, as far as I know. But, you know, when he died, there was sort of kind of an election from some of the great patrician families to choose who would lead next. So it functioned very differently from most other things, and it had a very complex history, you know, whether it was with the Byzantine Empire, or sort of kind of aligned to the Byzantine Empire, or in fact quite opposed to it. The Republic of Venice lasted for like 1,000 years, which is really incredible to think of. And, I mean, it was basically a combination. They were like marshy, sort of lagoony communities, you know, on the coast like this, but it was all, well, swampy and muddy and not a whole lot. People, you know, building houses on stilts, basically, and people kind of banding together for protection against some of the barbarians that were nearby, and eventually building out further and further into the sea. And that's why you have, you know, the city of Venice with all the canals, is because there wasn't land there. They sort of just built up out of the, you know, the bottom of the sea floor almost, and built up out of there. You know, I'm sort of generalizing, but you know, that's the sort of thing they were doing, and they were expanding out that way so they wouldn't have to worry about barbarians, and it would be easier to defend because there wasn't as many angles of attack. And then they did take over some territory, you know, sort of as these kind of puppet states, for example. And they did some pretty badass things. Like there's, like, I think it was the Fourth Crusade. The Crusaders came and they needed ships, so they went to Venice and they were like, all right, well, we've got ships, you got to pay us. And they're like, we don't have a whole lot of money. No? All right, go sack Constantinople for us, because Constantinople ticked us off. And so they did. So, you know, the Christian Crusaders sacked the Christian cities. I mean, it was an Orthodox city instead of a Catholic city, but which I guess made it okay. Anyway, let us get started. Now, we've got a lot of resources right adjacent to our city, which is pretty good. Now, one of the things you want to look for a really good start, and this definitely fits into that category, are tiles that produce 3 resources of food or production right off the bat. So, for example, the clams is actually quite poor right off the bat because it's just the one food. These 2 tiles are a little bit better because it's 1 food, 1 hammer. But all 3 of these tiles are stupendous for us because they each produce a total of 3 useful resources. Money doesn't really matter quite as much right off the bat because you're trying to, you know, get your initial building down, or, you know, grow to that population 2 as quickly as possible. So, unless I'm mistaken, this feels like it's going to be an exceptionally strong start. You usually have to regenerate a few times, which you can do with the restart game button here. It'll keep the same settings, but regenerate the map. And so, you know, sometimes I'll do that a few times just to get a tile in that first initial sort of donut, you know? You're in the donut hole and everything's around you. Because that's the one that really matters, because that's the one you're going to be building at first. And then after that, usually you'll get a bit of a culture pop that will expand outwards, and, you know, you'll get an extra tile and you can start producing, you know, a little bit extra there. But I'm quite happy with that. I'm going to hit a quick save here, and we're actually going to put in a quick cut because this first video won't have any actual gameplay. This will be part 0, and then we'll be back in a minute with part 1, which will be where we start actually taking turns and building things. See you in a second, folks. Bye-bye.